A Year Like None Other by Aspeninthesunlight. Warning! The following is a fanfiction about the Harry Potter universe. The rights to the characters or to the Harry Potter universe are the property of J.K. Rowling and other entities having acquired the rights. On the other hand, as the text contains some violent scenes, this fanfiction is noted as adapted to a mature audience. Author's notes. When starting this, please keep in mind that A Year Like None Other was started long before Half-Blood Prince came out. It was always my intention to write an alternative 6th year, and when the canon Year 6 was published, it meant that my own little saga seriously diverged from canon. So, reading this, imagine that Year 1 to 5 did occur, but nothing we discover from Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows is necessarily true this time around. The most important divergences are these. In this universe, Snape is a pureblood, and his father's name was Hostilian, which tells you a lot by itself. Dumbledore never died, and certainly not at Snape's hand. This story is completely finished and about 760,000 words long. I am very happy to report that the whole thing is now online for you, hopefully, intense enjoyment. And now, on with the show, which begins with A Year Like None Other, completed, continues into Summer Like None Other, also completed, and wraps up with A Family Like None Other, a Year 7 novel that I am still writing. See the end of the work on archive.aaaand.org for more notes and other works inspired by this one. A Year Like None Other by Aspeninthesunlight. Chapter 1. A Letter from Surrey. If there was anything that Harry Potter liked more than chocolate frogs and sugar quills, it was getting mail from his friends. Sometimes that had been all that had got him through those miserable summers with the Dursleys. He honestly didn't know how he'd managed to make it through the monotonous vacation back before he'd known Ron and Hermione and Dean and Seamus and Remus and Neville. Of course, there'd been that awful summer when Dobby had charmed all the owls away, when his Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon had been furious that he'd spent an entire year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. They hadn't wanted him to go, which actually puzzled Harry whenever he thought about it. It had got him out of their hair for an entire school year. You'd think they'd had been delighted to send him off to any boarding school, even if it was one that taught magic. So what if they hated magic? They hated him more. Going to open that, mate? Ron asked between bites. Yeah, Harry answered without looking up. It was no wonder that seeing this letter had brought to mind all those times he'd been stuck at the Dursleys and gasping for mail from his friends. He was at school now, 6th year, surrounded by happy Gryffindor gulping down a quick lunch, although how anybody could be happy before double potion was a good guess, and it seemed he'd got a letter, delivered by a magic owl, from those same Dursleys, the one who hated anything magical. No, couldn't be, Harry decided. It was a joke, right? From Fred and George, even though Harry had no idea how the twins could have gotten his Muggle address. Sure, they could find his house, if they had another enchanted car, that is, but to know how to write out the location of it, Muggle style? But there it was, written right on the envelope. 4 Private Drive, Little Winning, Surrey. Harry sighed, thinking it less and less likely that this could be a joke. Fred and George's father might work in the misuse of Muggle artifact department at the Ministry of Magic, but since he once asked Harry what the precious purpose of a rubber duck was, Harry didn't think that Mr. Weasley understood much at all about Muggles. And this letter, well, even if you ignore the address, it had Muggle written all over it. The envelope wasn't made of nice parchment, It was just paper, and long and white, like the envelopes Uncle Vernon used for business. Besides, a return address? Wizarding letters didn't need those, and they certainly didn't bear postage. Sighing, Harry began picking out the little profile of the Queen, just for something to do. It was better than opening the letter, that was for sure. In over 5 years, the Dursleys had never once written him at school. It couldn't be a good sign that they were starting now. "Hey, Harry," Ron prompted again, this time with his mouth full. "You want me to open it for you?" "Nah," Harry shook his head. "I just think maybe it'd be better if I waited a bit. Yeah, until after potion, you know. Best to go into that with a clear head. That slimy excuse for a teacher will take 1,000 points from Gryffindor if I let my potion boil over again like last week." Hermione looked up from the book she'd been obsessing about for a day and a half, countering the counter-curse, reversing reversals. "How could you mistake a salamander eye for a sea grass, though, Harry? You should know by now that adding animal elements to a potion based on poppy seed oil is going to have repercussions. Don't you remember the principles we learned 3rd year about animal, vegetable, and mineral, and how some ingredients just want to stay true to class?" Miss Granger, showing off again, like the arrogant Gryffindor you are. A cool voice from above made them all look up. Snape, of course. His lip twisted, his eyes burning like twin torches, only black. Just the sight of it made Harry want to shudder. No, cancel that. It did make him shudder, because he remembered that same look near the end of last year, when the potion master had refused to go help Sirius, no matter that Harry was pleading. Come to think of it, maybe it refused because Harry was pleading. In any case, Sirius has died. Suddenly, instead of being worried that Snape might have heard the slimy excuse for a teacher remark, Harry hoped he had. And Mr. Weasley, with his mouth creamed full as usual, dropping crumbs for the house elf to magic away. 10 points from Gryffindor for sloppiness. His eyes passed over the 3 of them, but Harry didn't look up. No point. Not when he'd just lose points for his house. The rage smouldering in his eyes would be enough to set Snape off. Not that Snape had ever needed an excuse, let alone a reason, to take points out of Gryffindor. Snape slid past them, and Harry breathed a sigh of relief. "The nerve!" Hermione hissed as soon as Snape exited the tall doors at the end of the hall. "He knows perfectly well that the house elves don't have to sweep this floor. But that's good, isn't it? I mean, they have enough to do. Whoever spelled the floor to blink away the debris about to hit must have thought so." "Hermione!" Ron groaned in exasperation. "Do you have room for anything in your head except studies and house elves? Harry got a letter he's afraid to open. Or didn't you notice?" She noticed then, plucking the envelope from his fingers and flipping it over twice as she examined it. "Oh, sorry, Harry." Ron still didn't know which end was up. What's the matter?" "It's from the Dursleys," Harry groaned, though how his Muggle relative had got their hands on a magic owl was still a good question in his view. "The Dursleys?" Ron slowly repeated. "They don't even write you." "So it can't be anything I want to hear," Harry concurred. "Oh, they can't do much to you," Ron replied, stuffing another slice of carrot cake between his teeth. "It's not like they can take you out of school, is it? Dumbledore'd never stand for it. For one, you're safe here. And for another, how are you going to fight you-know-who if you don't become a fully trained wizard?" "I suppose," Harry murmured, taking the letter back from Hermione. He should probably open it, right? What could the Dursleys do, after all? They'd been cowed the whole summer, just because Mad-Eye Moody had given Uncle Vernon some strict advice regarding Harry and mistreatment. In a lot of ways, it had been his best summer yet. The Dursleys had ignored him completely, had looked right through him and acted like he wasn't even in the house. But that was better than course from dawn until dusk and runts about his parents. "Read your letter after potions," Hermione studently agreed. "It's probably nothing, Harry. But you don't want to risk it. Not with Snape. He's really had it in for you this year. Worse than before." "Yeah," Harry said again, thinking of the pensieve and Snape's worst memory. Even as angry as he was over Sirius, he was still sorry he'd pried like that. Or maybe he was sorry not so much because he'd offended Snape, but because he'd seen things he really didn't want to know. About his father, about Sirius. "Time's for potions, then," he groaned, pushing to his feet. "What about the letter?" Ron urged. "It can't be that bad. Why can't you read it on the way?" "Later," Harry refused. "Much later." In fact, if he had it this way, he might just never open the letter. Harry's expression brightened at that, even if he was on his way to potions. Yeah, that was it. He'd just never opened the letter. The Dursleys wouldn't have written anything he wanted to read, so that was that. Of course, he might have some explaining to do when summer rolled around, but that was months away still. Harry shoved the letter deep in his bag, determined to forget about it.